take down bad guys? Yeah, I can handle that.
Then the battle begins.
Hello everybody, I'm the Heroscaper. Today I'm going to show you how to paint the new Sergeant Drake from the AOA promo release. This is an awesome Heroscape figure, on a jetpack with a sword, but honestly it's just could use a little bit of a facelift. Pre-painted is perfectly fine, but there's so much detail and inherent coolness on this model that honestly, if you spend just a couple minutes just touching it up, you can really make this thing have its rightful centerpiece in the battlefield. This is a great piece if you're looking to practice cloth or just kind of improve some basic painting skills, as this is a really easy formula to practice layering and adding some different highlights and values to your figure. Okay, so first off, you're going to want to grab kind of a drab green. I'm using dark yellow green from Pro Acryl. Always when you load your brush, you want to make sure that you remove the excess and that you don't put it on too thick. If you do put it on too thick, you can spread it around. I really like this green as it has a very unique kind of hue and value to it. And if you notice, I'm not using any zenithal or anything, just starting straight black, as I think that's a nice, easy way to build up. I want to do zenithal because I didn't strip the paint that came on this, so I applied a nice thin prime for my airbrush. If you do decide to use a rattle can for this, definitely make sure that we're trying to match this as close to its color art as possible. I chose Pro Acryl for this because it has a very matte finish. It looks very nice when you apply it on, and it's not too reflective, as I get to have greater control over where it goes. While you're painting, try to avoid these straps and areas that we're going to add some different color to. But honestly, if you get some paint on it, you can just cover it up. It's not over the end of the world right there. So I'm using a nice dark yellow green, whatever brand you like. Many brands have kind of army colors. I know Vallejo has some specific colors in donation to regiments from armies. So you can certainly use that, but I really like this. It's a very nice, dark, and easy color to build up off of. Now, I'm not trying to color match the existing Sergeant Drake or even really color match the old one. I'm just kind of painting with the formula that I'm making up as I go along. Definitely want to get this crevice right here. And notice I didn't thin my paint down too much. I just want to have a nice, solid, but not too thick coverage on this. So I just put a bit of moisture on my brush, and Pro Acryl is really great at letting the paint do the work for you. Okay, while we're waiting for that to dry, we're gonna have to make the helmet a bit darker, I believe. Let's go with Angel Green from Army Painter and put that into your palette. Keeping that nearby. World War II, the helmets were typically a darker green compared to their suit, their fatigues, and we'll build this up so it's not as dark. Just to add some distinction in these parts, I'm also going to paint the outer kind of strap parts of these boots this color as well, just to make it visually flow on the top and the bottom. I made a little boo-boo right there. Sometimes when you're painting, you just have the paint go into a different spot. We're gonna let that dry, and then we're just gonna cover back up with the same color. No harm done there. Next, we're gonna grab a nice dark ruddy brown. We're using Tree Ancient from Army Painter as the base for all the leather that will be out on the model. You want to make sure you get all around the feet area. Make sure you turn the model to multiple different angles. Turn the model around to multiple different angles so as to not miss any parts that you may not have noticed upon initial inspection. If you notice, I'm holding the model on just a PVC pipe right here. It's just with some Gorilla sticky tack on it. It's a great way just to kind of hold your model. They do have like official paint holders and the like as well that you can get from like Citadel or other companies, but this works pretty well half the time. So, and we are just going to thinly apply this to all the straps, being careful not to obfuscate any details. And just using long straight lines for this part. Again, any mistakes can be fixed because we are trying to keep this pretty thin. I'm not really trying to avoid the little rivets or details on it. Figure I'll just go through and layer over those. And you may need to add 2 layers to fully cover all this. You want nice solid coverage for this base layer. And this is still the dark green. We're just putting another layer on it. Pro Acryl has a tendency to kind of appear brighter and then kind of darken as it dries. So you definitely want to keep an eye on it if it's not that right color tone you're looking for. I'm also fixing any mistakes I made thus far, just covering up some areas where the brown went too far and the like. The base layer is the most important, but it is also sometimes the most tedious, as you're just got to be very careful to be thorough and just go over the model a couple times. Of course, focus more on areas that would be more prominent, you know, focus more on this area compared to like directly underneath this arm here. But for the best results, it's best to get as even coverage first off as you can, because it does get a bit harder as you put more paint and layers on the model. Okay, let's get the skin tones going. So first I'm going to use Advanced Fleshtone from Pro Acryl, a very nice kind of tone that has a bunch of kind of orange subtleties to it, which is a really great color for building up skin tones. If you're using Army Painter, I suggest trying to start with Tan Flesh and then building your way up from that. When you do helmets like this, you definitely want to make sure you push up to the rim, but try not to get on the hat, as that will make it a bit harder from certain angles. I think he has fingerless gloves. I didn't notice at first. I will go through and add some. And I'm just picking in this detail, making sure it has a nice even coverage, but being especially careful that I don't just collop the paint onto the hands and the face, as once you lose those details, they're really hard to come back without stripping the whole model. Really get inside this inner hand here. This model is really easy to paint, but it does have some sharp angles that you want to be aware of. Okay, now I'm going to use some Acryl Dark Silver, or if you're using other brands, kind of some gunmetal mixed with a bit of black will give you a similar result. I'm kind of a Monument product fan. I am in love with lots of their paints, and they're really great paints if you're looking to kind of expand beyond just kind of basic stuff. As you can see, it does have a bit of a kind of learning curve as you have to kind of adjust as the colors dry. But they come on very thick and strong, and they're my personal favorite brand. But if you're just starting off, Warpainter Fanatics or Citadel is also just a great place to go as well. It doesn't really matter what paint you use, just as long as you kind of have control of it and know how it applies. And we are just putting this on here. Just all the metal parts and make it a nice dark metal. This metal comes on very smooth and it gives us a really solid point to jump up and build different colors off of it. We're also going to take our time and carefully apply this to all the little places where there'd be metal on these straps here. And the buckles, and even trying to hit some of these buttons. And as I'm painting, I noticed that he actually has his katana holder on his back, so we'll make sure to paint that a different color as well. I think that is brown like the rest of his body, but let's give it a different color brown. I'm going to use you of course can mix browns very easily, but I like to have a bunch of variety in browns just because it makes the process go by a lot easier and faster, having a few variety in shades to choose from. And for the little strap buckles, we are going to get a nice Wasteland Clay on our palette here, just for a bit of color. I mix that with just a tiny bit of brown to get this nice yellow brown looking here, like that. And Sergeant Drake has almost a golden hilt to his katana. I think it's golden. I can't tell if it's golden or yellow. I want to make it golden just to make it pop. Just going to use some greedy gold on that. A little hilt area. I'm going to use that yellow we just put on for the actual part down here. Maybe. Back and forth on that. This chin sap, you want to be very careful just to not get it onto your other paint job. If you do get some of the face, definitely make sure you clean that up, as that will be very distracting if it kind of bleeds out. And I'm going to use this same leather around the rim of the helmet. And we're going to use that silver and just lightly cover these glasses. We'll be bringing up those in a moment, but I like to block out all my colors just to know where everything's at. Make sure you get this little bracelet on his arm so as he doesn't lose his samurai sword. I'm going to go to more of a brighter yellow. This pastel yellow honestly isn't catching my eye. Now, next we're going to go to Army Green from Army Painter, which is a nice olive green, to really kind of start bringing in some of these highlights on the model. We're going to thin down the paint just a bit so it comes out somewhat translucent, not too thin. You don't want it to be so thin it makes a bit of a mess. It should come on your thumb or your figure rather, like that. And just start hitting the raised areas where the light is hidden. I'm essentially kind of following the creases and the raised areas just to kind of add some attention to that detail. You can also dry brush this if you want to do this really fast. I'm looking for more of an organic look on this. And I'll add texture probably with a different layer. I'm also going to do this on the helmet here. And we are just going to do our brush side to side. Like so. Very thin. Trying to kind of keep some of that darker stuff by the bottom. You definitely don't want to make sure the whole thing is this way. Really focused on the outermost edges, as you still want those deeper areas to maintain some of this deeper color from our base layer. And if this appears a little bright, don't worry, we are going to be working our way back down. Now I'm taking some of this original base color and thinly just kind of applying it to some areas where I went a little bit too heavy on the highlights. I put some water in it and mixed it down to make a sort of a glaze, just to kind of blend these two colors together just a bit. I also applied it to the helmet because I decided that I want it to be uniform with the rest. And my camera stopped recording for a second while I was doing this, but I took a dry brush and I started dry brushing all over the flames and the smoke area. And next we're going to make like a camo tone. I'm going to be using soft tone and a bit of Biel-tan green and mix these two together. You want, they do sell pre-mixed army tone, but you essentially want a nice drab green to apply to this. I didn't have any on hand, so I just made my own. And you're going to apply that to the green parts of the model. Really kind of blend these colors we applied so far and add some really nice depth and shade to it. grab some Drake's Tooth, which is a very kind of greenish gray bone color. And we are just going to add some final edge highlighting the most prominent raised areas. You'll want to use the edge of your brush and just briefly pinpoint some of these spots. Some key focus points. And we're adding a bit of texture to some areas. We just use a small dabbing motion to create scratches or grain and really make Drake's armor look really worn in. Drake's fatigues look really worn in, like he's been in a war for 20 years. And if you feel like you have ever brought this too far, just take some of that dark yellow green we started off with and thin it down a whole bunch so it's almost a watery-like consistency. And you can kind of glaze over it to make it a bit smoother. And blend the colors in a bit more. And try to get the top of the helmet very thinly. Just gonna take this thin down Drake's Tooth, thin it down kind of to that same glaze consistency, and spread it on the top as well. Follow that again with that glaze. And very delicately, we're just adding some texture lines, scuff marks throughout the pants and the legs area. You don't want to do it too much. Just draw a couple of very thin lines. And a single line, you can tell a whole story. And if you want to add a bit more texture, you can use a dabbing motion just to add some specks to the top of the helmet here. And now we are going to grab some barbarian flesh from Army Painter and thin that down, and we're going to really focus on the nose, lips, kind of the center area, as well as put it into the cheekbones a bit. We still want that nice advanced flesh tone. We put that kind of those oranges and brown to show through. So just make sure you keep this very thin and use a bit of discretion with it. Less is more. You really want to accent the cheekbones, the nose, the lips, and the chin are the main focal points. And then add a bit of layering to these fingers as well. Just essentially using the edge of your brush and tracing the outermost kind of raised surface. Important thing is just to make sure the shadow areas maintain that orangeness, as it really provides a nice natural looking shadow. And you don't overdo it on the raised areas. So this is how we're looking so far. Just getting all these fine little details in. This is all, of course, optional, but this is really how you take your Drake to the next level. You can use any or all of these tips to work on your pre-painted. You know, maybe you just want to improve the face. You don't have to redo the whole thing. You can just work on the face area. Now we're going to add some strong tone and blend this in with the browns we just did. And this works great. It adds some really nice dark shading to all the browns on the leather and even the gold on the blade. We're using this mainly as a filter to add some deeper shading to this area. Then we're gonna add a bit of this strong tone. To the fatigues, just to give some differentiation of tones. Make it a bit darker, as I think we went too high. I didn't catch this on camera, but I did go through and use a bit of Monster Brown from Game Color and just add a bit of highlights to the leather area as well, focusing kind of on the areas where the light would hit. And then went through and mixed that in with a bit of yellow for a bit of stippling and texture on the boots. Okay, and for the armor, we are actually going to use a blue tone. This on the sword. Alright, then we're going to take some plate mail metal. We're going to dry brush that onto the armor areas with a very small dry brush. I'm using this one from Artify, but you can also just use an old brush you have on hand. And actually we are going to use shining silver just to make this a bit brighter. The top of the sword. His little grappling hook. And his jetpack. Dry brushing adds a lot of inherent texture and grittiness, which is what I'm really trying to go for this unit. When you dry brush, pay especially attention to the middle area. You want that to appear the brightest on the sword. And the very tip. We're going to trace some of that leather metal onto the buckles just to add them some distinction. Since they're so small, I wouldn't recommend dry brushing them. Just trace the outer edge. Catch where the light would gleam. Okay, so first we're gonna grab some Ancient Honey speed paint or nice neutral yellow of your choice. And we are going to get some glaze medium or some speed paint medium if that's all you have in hand. We really want to kind of distill this out so as it's not super thick and concentrated, and that it has a wider surface area and flows and blends easily. All right, so we're going to leave the first close part right there, and then we are going to put the yellow here, and we're going to get that red, and then we are going to put that at the end. And you want to kind of blend it together like so. And then we're going to take some of that Nuclear Sunrise and do that as a nice mid-tone. Get rid of all the excess. And you should have a nice gradient. And while both paints are wet, just kind of work on blending these colors together to their nice, satisfying brightness. Paint may want to flow down into the smoke. Try to disperse it if it does that. And we are going to get some Gravelord Gray. And apply that very thickly onto the smoke area here. Now we're going to add some Flesh Wash to the skin. Which has I'm using Flesh Wash from Pro Acryl, which has a very nice, lovely kind of brown and magenta subtones to it. Just to add a tiny bit more depth to this face. Next, I grabbed some Nighthaunt Gloom from Citadel, but really any thin blue contrast paint will work. And I tried applying this to the sword to give it a bit of a blue glow, but I eventually decided to layer back that up over to a much normal, brighter silver. I also added this to the goggle lenses to make them appear to have a bit of a subtle glow after I painted the lenses white. After this dries, you can go in the lens and just add a bit of kind of white spots in the circle that give the eye a reflective sheen. And I forgot to record this, but I put some dark wood onto the blast area at the bottom, essentially just covering up that with a dark tone. I did experiment with trying to do explosion, but I wasn't fully liking the look of it, or maybe I was just lazy, I'll never tell. But I decided just to kind of make it look as much like the model it came from. Just put that over there and then just dry brush with a light tan to bring out some of that texture and catch the eye. And there you have it, a repaint of Sergeant Drake. As said, the original is perfectly fine, but this is a great way to hone your skills and make the hero of Heroscape just catch the eye a tiny bit better. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more painting tutorials, and hope you all take care.